Hello, Atlanta Falcons fans. Today we have some exclusive news that you can't miss. So get ready because there's a lot of important information coming. Before we start, we'd like to take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and stay up to date with all the news about our Atlanta Falcons. Don't forget to leave a like, which really strengthens our community and helps bring this content to those who are most passionate about the team. Now, without further ado, let's get straight to today's news. Why Jaren Reed makes sense as a free agent option for the Falcons. Over the past 2 seasons, Reed has a combined 41 pressures and 11.5 sacks. The Atlanta Falcons have a few items on their offseason agenda regarding the future of their defense. However, if defensive tackle is on the agenda, it's probably not because the team wants to add players to that group. According to Over the Cap, starters Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata will cost more than $37 million against the salary cap in 2025. The team could save about $8 million by moving on from Onyemata and more than $16 million by moving on from Jarrett, though that move wouldn't be as straightforward. Atlanta also drafted Rooker Hororo and Brandon Dorlus last year, and would likely want to add them to the rotation along with Zach Harrison. You get the idea, it's a crowded group. And yet, while the Falcons could be looking to free up some finances at the position, there's a chance they'll still need to add a player in free agency at some point. With that in mind, Taryn Walk recently published his list of 5 free agents who could make sense for Atlanta at defensive tackle. Of the players on that list, Jaren Reed stood out to me. For the reasons I've outlined above, I'm assuming that signing a free agent at defensive tackle means the Falcons part ways with either Jarrett or Onyemata, or both. In that scenario, I think Reed offers a middle path that Atlanta would be wise to take. He'd still be a bit pricey. Over the Cap has his market value at $5.68 million, but not as expensive as the current setup, and the 32-year-old could potentially become a designated pass rush specialist. Over the past 2 seasons, Reed has a combined 41 pressures and 11.5 sacks. His 10.5% quarterback pressure rate in 2024 ranked 9th among qualified defensive tackles. Schematically, Reed should fit into the hybrid defensive looks that head coach Raheem Morris and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich envision. He's been an effective gap pass rusher throughout his career with 38.5 sacks to his name, but he's also developed into a stout run defender with 46 stops since the start of the 2023 season. The Falcons are well-rounded on offense for the foreseeable future, but the defense is ripe for a shakeup in the upcoming offseasons. Getting a player like Reed on a financially reasonable short-term deal keeps some floor in place for the defensive line if a change were to happen. Falcons linked to star pass rusher Trey Hendrickson. This offseason could see several of the league's most dominant pass rushers finding new homes, which should pique the interest of Terry Fontenot, whose top priority this offseason is finding guys who can get after the Falcons quarterback. That has plagued the organization for the better part of 2 decades and has only gotten worse under Fontenot's watch. The Falcons finished 31st in the league in sacks last season. That number needs to improve significantly, or Fontenot may not see another year in Atlanta. First, it was 2023 NFL Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett who made headlines. The 29-year-old, who has already racked up more than 100 sacks in his 8-year career, officially requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns earlier this offseason. To this point, the Browns have remained steadfast in not moving Garrett, who still has 2 years remaining on his contract. But given their salary cap position because of Deshaun Watson's contract and the realistic competitive window, they may not have much choice but to oblige and sell Garrett to the highest bidder. Following Garrett to the forefront of the conversation today is Bengals star pass rusher Trey Hendrickson. A year older than Garrett, Hendrickson is coming off a season in which he led all of football in sacks with 17.5. The second consecutive season, he has recorded 17.5 sacks. Over the past 5 seasons, he has accumulated 70.5 sacks, making the Pro Bowl in 4 straight seasons. Hendrickson was the lone bright spot on what was a historically bad Bengals defense last season. In theory, Cincinnati should be doing everything in its power to extend him, given their competitive window is open with Joe Burrow leading the offensive side of the ball. However, the Bengals are a bad organization, one that makes no sense, and, unlike the Browns, they're actually giving Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade this offseason. It's a marriage that's coming to an end, and top NFL insider Jordan Schultz is reporting that the Falcons are among the interested teams. Sources, the #Falcons, as well as the #Commanders, have also been monitoring the Trey Hendrickson situation. With his trade request now official, more teams are getting involved with the #Bengals All-Pro Pass Rusher. Schultz posted on Twitter/X. If you're looking for some other reasons why the Falcons might actually be able to land Hendrickson, he has some ties to the organization. Terry Fontenot was in New Orleans, where he was drafted in the 3rd round in 2017. Hendrickson also played with Jesse Bates III in Cincinnati, who has thrived in Atlanta since signing with the Falcons 2 off-seasons ago. These are relationships the Falcons can hopefully lean on, but ultimately it will come down to who is willing to meet the Bengals' demands. Who is desperate enough to give up a first-round pick, possibly more, and then give Hendrickson $35 million a year for the next 4 seasons. I'd argue there's no team in the NFL more desperate when it comes to rushing the passer than the Atlanta Falcons. And there may not be a more desperate general manager than Terry Fontenot, who likely won't keep his job beyond this season if the Falcons miss the playoffs.